Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Vanessa and on this channel I talk about books, everything cozy, everything that I enjoy doing in life. Today is a bit of a weird one if I have to be honest because your girl got the Rona. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the actual name to be fair because I know that I might get banned. But I am alone at home. I'm feeling really sorry for myself, so I thought, let's get creative. So that's what I did. Just got myself a nice cup of tea. This is no idea what this kind of tea is. Some sort of like fruity tea. Still in my Christmas mug and wearing my favorite pajamas. Yeah. So I'm really sorry for the way I look right now, but yeah, the last 3 days have been really interesting, trying to battle the old Rona, the old sea boy, okay? But let's say that today I'm feeling slightly better, and I thought it was the perfect day to actually come here, have a chat, and talk with you about all the books that I read in 2023. Basically, everyone who's into books and reading, they do, at the beginning of the year, we set a Goodreads goal. Mine was set at 40, and I actually managed to finish reading 40 books. I would have loved to, to read more books, but things got in the way at a certain point. I had a couple of 2-3 months that have been really busy. Life got in the way, work got in the way, and I just had to make it really realistic and read as much as I could. I feel like 2024 has started on a very good note because I already have something in store for the next videos. So I have a really good lineup of books that I'm really excited to read. I won't get really into details because, it will take ages. But I'm here with my laptop and I'm on Goodreads at the moment. And I have all of them right here. And we will try to separate them by tier. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers, which is more than what I thought I was going to do, but hear me out, we'll make it work. So we have, first one is book jail. All the books that I despised from the first page to the last one, and they are going straight to jail. We have that, and then we have, I have already forgotten this existed. Every book that really didn't make that much of an impact on me and it was just, We have Here for the Vibes, which is a special category, which is for books that are not specifically my favorite, but they have a great potential and I was there for the vibes. I'm very much of a mood reader. So, sometimes I just feel like reading a good horror. There we go. I feel like reading a romance. Yeah, okay. Then we have, oh hell yeah, and that is the category for books that were really good. Not quite there yet, but they were really good. And then we have Book Heaven, and that is the 5 stars from the very first chapter. I knew that was going to be a 5-star, and at the end of it, I'm like, this is even more of a 5-star. Okay, but let's start, because there's 40 books to go through. Going in order, the first book that I read this year was Children of Paradise, which is a very interesting book. I think I really loved the vibes of this. It was okay. It's a story of this group of people, they're young adults, I believe, who moved to Edinburgh and they live this sort of student life where they work for this a film studio. It was a mixture between a film studio and an old cinema. And there's loads of things happening, but I feel like there was no development in the story. And it's a very short book, but it felt like it just lasted for ages. So I think we're going to put this in Here for the Vibes, which is exactly what I thought the book was going to be like. Second book, we have The Starlet Sea, which was a suggestion from a very good friend of mine, and she told me that this was her favorite book, so I went into it with really high expectations. This is the example of again, Here for the Vibes book. I would give it probably 2.5 stars. Oh god. because it just felt like there was no story at all, which is exactly what this book is about. It's just the personal discovery of this boy who gets lost in this massive library. And it just has some beautiful imagery, which is what made the book special. But I think I won't go back and read it again. I was really close at one point to DNF it, which I didn't do, because I decided to I promised myself not to DNF any single book, to the point that sometimes some books that will come a bit later on, I literally skim through them. But I did it. I read them. Third book is The Body Keeps the Score. This book has such a special place in my heart, and it's going straight to book heaven. Straight to book heaven. It's such a beautiful piece. It's so well made. Of course, for people who don't know, this is a non-fiction book, and it's actually a research from a group of scientists, especially the author of the book. And it's talking about how any sort of trauma, even the ones that we're not aware of, or we thought that they weren't actually traumas, they actually affect us in the present, future, and how they might have affected us in the past as well. Even if you think you haven't encountered trauma, it's just so interesting to know, how to deal with other people's trauma as well, or also intergenerational traumas. It's just things that sometimes we don't even think about, and they can change completely the personality of a person. And yeah, this is an easy 5-star. After this, we have a big boy. We have The Secret History. Okay, Secret History. I loved it. It took me a while to go through it, because it's not an easy book, but it's a masterpiece. It's a classic. It's a contemporary novel. It's something that I think we won't ever get tired of reading. It's very pretentious, but in a good way. I really enjoyed it. I loved the topic. I loved the characters, even if they were very much black and white, and sometimes they were more towards the bad side instead of the good one. But this is the kind of example of bad characters and morally incorrect characters that I think were very interesting. And even if I couldn't connect to any of them, I didn't find them annoying, and that is what actually drove me to read the entirety of the novel instead of just thinking of dropping it off. But this is a 5 stars. It's just a masterpiece, and if you want to read a classic which is accessible, please read this one. My next book, it's Bunny. Bunny. Okay, where can we put Bunny? Let me just reread. I think it's a oh hell yeah book. Yeah, I think I read this in 2 days, in a couple of sittings. There's a lot of vibes, but it's not just vibes. There's a story, there's a message behind it. It's fun, it's engaging, it's a hot girl book, if we can call it like that. It's really nice, it's really fun. It's a mixture between fantasy and some sort of chick flick. It's really good, and I still think that it's very present, and it will be between the famous books for a reason, for another good while. After this, we have probably my most awaited book of the year, which is Hellbent. I have a lot of things to say about Hellbent, because I didn't think I was going to like The Ninth House, which I read the year before in 2022. But I was actually recommended it by a girl that I met in I think it was a Waterstones actually. And she just told me, yeah, this is my favorite book. If you really like dark academia, if you like a magic realism scenario, please do this. The characters are amazing. And she was right. It became straight up one of my favorite books. It's literally, I think it just reminded me what I like about fantasy series and fantasy books, and why, even when I was younger, I loved reading, and I spent so much time reading these kind of books. And I think Hellbent was a good sequel. It wasn't up there with the ninth house, though, because I feel like there were loads of sections in the book that were repeating itself. It was the same story repeating itself over and over and over again, and at one point I was just like, okay. But if we forget about those parts, it's a perfect story. For me, it's really good. I've seen so many other people just, commenting on the fact that it's not in the same level of the ninth house, and I get it. But personally, I love it. According to this, I have to put this in book heaven again. I would probably put it just a tiny, tiny bit lower than book heaven, between book heaven and oh hell yeah. But for now, we'll leave it in book heaven. After this, we have a very interesting book that's it's called The Olive. And I have already talked about this book previously. If you go back in my videos, you'll find all the details, descriptions about all these books that I'm talking about. This is a Here for the Vibes book. Between probably Here for the Vibes and oh hell yeah, because I hated how it was written. I feel like it just gave me the impression that there hasn't been loads of editorial work behind this book. So it was just published very quickly without actually getting into the composition of the book, how it was written. Some things were a bit icky, but the story itself and the message it wanted to give, that would probably convince me to put it into book heaven. It's a story of this woman. She's in her, I believe, early 30s, and she finds herself in a position where she's not really happy with her life. She's feeling a bit lost, and she's having a struggle with all her friends being very much into this adult life, family life. They have kids, they want to have kids, and she just doesn't feel like she belongs to that sort of life, which again, that is why I sort of felt kind of a connection to it. And that is why I think it's Here for the Vibes, but probably a step above Here for the Vibes. If it wasn't for the writing, it would be all the way into oh hell yeah. Another non-fiction book, which is Toxic Positivity. This is a book that I was probably influenced reading through TikTok, because I was going through all these books that might have been similar to The Body Keeps the Score. I was really into I'm always into my, psychotherapy, sort of therapy-related books. But I found this interesting. I think there were some really good points that the author wants to make about the kind of very frenetic lifestyle that we're in right now, and the sort of wants us to always see the positive in things, while sometimes this view might make us feel worse because we force ourselves to feel in a way that it's not that, and we never learn how to process negative emotions. But I think it was a bit simple. The way it was written, it was very much like, I don't know, seeing loads of Instagram posts and TikTok posts and put together with a little bit of text in the middle. So for that reason, I'll probably put it in Here for the Vibes as well. Yeah. It was good, but I probably wouldn't go back, read it again. Sorry. After this, we have a book that actually, it's so bad because I completely forgot I read this. It's called Amazing Grace Adams. It's actually really good. I really enjoyed it. But I think it's one of those books that you kind of forget about it. So I might want to put it into, I forgot I read this. But not because it's a bad book. It's just I feel like it's the idea of it. It's so rushed and so fast that I literally forgot it was there. It's a story of this woman. She's a middle-aged woman, and she's having a breakdown. And it's a 24-hour breakdown when she literally just finds herself in her car. She's driving a car. She stops in the middle of the road, leaves the car, and just leaves and walks and keeps walking. And it's just her story on trying to get her life back during, I think it's her daughter's birthday, on that same day. But then again, just because this happens in between basically less than 24 hours, it's probably 12 hours and not even that, it's easy to forget all the things that happen in there. But maybe it's just me. maybe someone else read it and thought this was the best book in the world. After this, we have the first of the trilogy of books I read in 2023. This is The Drift. I really enjoyed this. This is going straight in book heaven. No, actually, let's put it in Oh Hell Yeah. Because I think it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful story. It's a thriller mixed with some horror that seems very supernatural at the beginning, but then at the end there's an explanation to things, but then again things twist around again. There's a lot of twists and turns, and I really enjoyed it. I really like C.J. Tudor's writing. I think she is absolutely talented, so talented when it comes to thrillers and writing things that sort of in between supernatural and not really. She always makes it seem very real, and I really recommend you pick this up if you really like the genre, because it's such a good book. Now we have another book that is going straight to book heaven. It's Wward by Emilia Hart. This book, I found out about this book because sometimes I go to Waterstones events when they have talks with the authors, and there was this one in particular when she was talking about the book, and as soon as I heard anything that she had to say about the story, I was like, I need to pick this up. This is a very feminist story, divided into the story of the history, basically, of 3 different women of different generations. So the first one, I think set somewhere around probably Middle Ages, if I'm not mistaken, because we're talking about, there's a very broad talk about the witches and everything that was around the witch hunt in the Middle Ages. And the second story regards this woman, and I think it's set somewhere in the 1800, 1900, beginning of 1900. And the third one is actually nowadays, and they are all fighting their own demons. But at the end, all these demons are tied together by a single element. It's very lyrical. It's very much like a journey that if you feel like picking up a book that it's very much fast-paced and you won't be able to keep your eyes off it, don't pick this one up. But if you're into fiction that sort of dips into fantasy a bit, this is for you. We have another book now that I will put in book jail. First book jail of the year. This book, it's the Whispering Muse. I think I'm going to put it in book jail because I was so incredibly disappointed with this book. I was so excited because the story is about this putting on, a production, and this is something that I love. I'm an actor. I love these things, and there was also some fantasy element to it because the theatre and the production they're putting up, it's haunted. And I was like, this is going to be a easy 5-star for me. I just found the resolution to be really easy and really wasted because the story had a fantastic build-up, and then I was bored throughout a third of the book, and the end was just such a letdown. So, sorry. Great vibes, absolutely here for the vibes, but I have to put it in book jail just because I had the highest expectations of it. After this, we have another thriller. It's The Institution. I think I'll put this one in Oh Hell Yeah. I really liked it. It's a great thriller. It's got great settings. It's got great characters. The end is packed with action. I could not take my eyes off this. But still, I can't put it into book heaven because I feel like there was something missing. There was something just made it stand out from something else. But this book is mwah. Love it. We have our first Stephen King book. Everyone knows that I'm a big fan of Stephen King's writing, and I heard some creators on YouTube actually talking about a book that actually he published as a short novel. It's called Later. It's not very popular, but it's such a ride. This is going into book heaven. This is a thriller about a boy who can see dead people. I can't really see much more about this, but it's such a messed up story, but in a good way, and it just leaves you hanging until the very end. This is a straight up book heaven, and I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I found out some more stories from Stephen King that I didn't know they existed. Yeah. Then we have Convenience Store Woman. I forgot I even read this. Not that I forgot, that I actually forgot, but that is the category where I'm putting it. I was completely let down from this book as well, if I have to be honest, because it was so hyped up, but it really didn't give me anything. This is one of the examples of characters that I'm alright with them, but they're sort of starting to give me the ick a bit. So, yeah, I mean, it was short, and it took me 3 days to get through less than 200 pages, and that says a lot. We have another non-fiction, and it's called A Love Story. This is an essay by this journalist, and she tells a story of how she found herself again and found joy again during the pandemic when she got a little kitten, and that kitten changed her and her partner's life, and I thought that was the cutest story in the world. I'm gonna put this in, oh hell yeah. It touched points that everyone who felt lonely or had, let's say, some troubles navigating their lives through the pandemic, I just found them really interesting, and I'm a huge cat lover. I would do anything for my cat. I would literally adopt and save every cat in the world. And yes, I really love this. We have our first sci-fi, which is Project Hail Mary. I am very happy to say this is book heaven. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of sci-fi books because I feel like sometimes I just have to think too much. To be fair, very plain and simple. I want to enjoy a book. I don't want to spend my time trying to understand every single page I'm reading. And sometimes and sci-fi books are huge. And I found myself literally reading this in probably a couple of days. I could not stop reading. It's so good. And I heard that this is actually being transformed into a film. Really hope so. Really hope so, because that would be a film that I would run to the cinema to watch. I have the first book I've ever read by Becky Chambers is A Psalm for the Wild-Built. This book is such a punch in the heart. It's described as a fantasy and sci-fi as well, but I would describe it as a philosophical book as well. It just talks about many aspects of life that sometimes we don't really think about. And it's between this monk and this robot, and they're just having this conversation that's just so pure and kind. And I just can't wait to read the second one, but this is going to book heaven as well. We have another book that is actually going into, I forget about this, which is Station 11. I know. This is another one. I feel like there's a recurring theme of me trying to read books regarding, theatre troupes and sci-fi and dystopia, and then reading them, and I'm like, this is not as great as I thought it was going to be. Again, story, fantastic, but the writing style, I just found it to be boring. And I was bored. I was bored throughout the book. I almost left it. I literally almost DNF'd this book, which I'm glad I didn't. I don't know. I just feel like, this book, great start of the story, but it wasn't for me. I'm not saying that it's a bad book, because it's a great book, but it just wasn't for me. We have A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, and I am a huge fan of Virginia Woolf. She's probably one of my favorite authors, classical authors. She is just special. I love her writing style. It takes me ages to go through anything she does, but I think she's so smart and so clever. She has such great ideas, and just the way she sees the world and her stories, it's fantastic. So this book is actually an essay, and it talks about the way that she thought women were treated differently than men in the creative and especially in the editorial, you know, like, just in the book world back then. And she makes some really great points that are actually applicable to the present as well in the whole creative industry. And I really enjoyed this. It's really short, packs a punch though, and this is going straight to book heaven. I have Wool as my next book. This is the beginning of a trilogy, and I picked this one up because I watched the beginning of a TV series that they made out of this book, and it's actually currently on Apple TV. The series is called Silo. I really loved the beginning, and I was craving something Hunger Games themed, sort of dystopia related. I really enjoyed this. It was fun. I would put in, it was good. It was a bit longer than that probably could have been 100 pages less than what it is, but I really enjoyed it. I don't really have much to say. I feel like the TV series does a great job in portraying the story. There's some things that I enjoyed way more in the book though, specific parts of the story that have been changed. The main character is such a badass. I really, really like her. And yeah, if you're into that sort of book, just pick it up. I would give it probably 3.75/4 stars. It's really good. Yeah. Now we have a book that I'm really sad for. I have some very contrasting ideas about this book. It's I Who Have Never Known Men. Oh, okay. The reviews for this book are incredibly high. And I know why. I was still in my dystopian era. It's such a great idea, and if I had to base it only on the idea and the characters and how heavy the themes are, I had to put it all the way to the top. But I found like it took me a while to get into it, and it took me a while to go through it. And there's no answers to anything. It's mainly vibes. So I can probably put it in here for the vibes. There's a lot of... I think there's a lot of talks about these themes, and the study is mainly based on the relationship between the characters and how these women, they just, one day they woke up and they found themselves in this cell. They don't know how they got there. There's only men around them, and they just don't know how to get out. And it's just their relationship that makes this book worth reading, to my opinion. We have some of my favorite books now, okay? So we have Yellowface. What can I say about Yellowface? I'm really mad because I come from Babel and The Poppy War, which are some of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. And I was expecting something like that in Yellowface, but it was completely the opposite, because I found the story being so... it just made me so angry, because it was basically the story of the author, and sometimes, I mean, I completely understand the point she's trying to make, but it kind of resulted being a bit too petty at times, which is not something I want to say considering the themes of this book. I found the story to be okay. The end of the book was meh, but I just couldn't stand the fact that I could see the author in this character. It was just the author, and I just didn't find it interesting. I'm sorry, this is going straight to book jail. Sorry. After this, I read Pretty Girls. This book, I mean, I flew through it, but I'd put it, I forgot I read this, but I also want to put it into, I want to forget that I read this, because it's messed up, man. This book is filthy. This book is probably the most violent one I've ever read. I mean, I get that it's sort of fast-paced because you want to go through it, but there's some sort of morbid attachment the author has to these themes that are just a bit too much. I don't know. Yeah, this is going book jail. No, not for me. I just realized my cat has been sitting next to me all this time. Hi, baby. Ooh, the next one is Dark Matter. I love this one. This one's fantastic. 10 out of 10, straight to book heaven. I really like Blake Crouch, and I think his sci-fi is fantastic. And yeah, I really hope to read more from his book. I really want to read Recursion. But this is literally in my next TBR, so I'm very excited about this. This is such an easy read. You cannot put it down. It's so well written, easy to read, and yeah, it's amazing. And same thing goes actually to the only one left, which is my third book by the author. And I feel like the first two were a bit mid. I actually enjoyed this one. I would put it in, oh hell yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. It was fun. It was the classic, thriller. Is there some magic in here? Is something haunted? Or is it just some people, trying to hide some murder stuff? And it's great. It was a good time. We have a big one, which is Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. I would put this one in book heaven. If I had to analyze the characters and analyze them personally, like if I liked the characters, it would go probably in oh hell yeah. But the book is wonderful. It's such good exploration of a troubled friendship, all the ups and downs, or anything that regards, family, work and aspirations, and working with a family member as well. It's fantastic, yeah. I can't say anything bad about it, to be fair. The only thing I just found sometimes the characters to be a bit annoying, but I knew that was a good thing because it was related to the story. So yeah, I loved it. After this, we have another book that goes straight to book heaven. It's Ripe. This book, it was such a discovery. It's such a tiny book. It's probably 200 pages. And it's the story of this woman who finds herself into the midst of corporate life. And she basically gives us this image of how it's consuming her integrity and her future, everything regarding herself. I loved it. I loved every single page of this. It was so suggestive, so... it just kept you guessing, and it's the kind of fiction that I would keep on reading, and I kind of wish that it was not ending. There was probably another 100 pages. Yeah, this is great. And now we have the second Stephen King book, Holly. I was really let down by this one, to be fair. Not gonna lie. This book was mid. It was very mid. It was a classic detective story with, ooh, there's a problem. Oh, we have a solution. Oh, we found our people. That is it. And in the middle as well, I could feel there was a lot of the author's voice that was a bit too pushed. Because it talks a lot about the pandemic and the Trump administration. And as much as I agree with everything he said in the book, I feel like it was a bit too much at times. I feel like it was just a bit too present in the conversations as well, and took the energy away from the characters. And now we have I'm just so attached to this book. It's the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This is as everyone knows, this is a prequel to the Hunger Games, and I really enjoyed reading this one because I'm really attached to the series, and I would put this in there, oh hell yeah. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it because I thought it was going to be some sort of redemption story for the character of Snow, but it actually wasn't. It was, and it's actually way better than the movie in describing how visceral his thought process was. So good. But at the same time, I'm not going to put it in book heaven because it was very slow. It was so incredibly slow. You could have taken 100 pages of it. Yeah, but it's here in my heart. I love it. Oh gosh, this book. It's Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. I was not expecting anything of this book. It was suggested to me by a new friend of mine, And she said this was her favourite book. And I thought, okay, she has great taste. All right, let's get into it. And it's, oh my goodness, this is going straight to book heaven. It's a story of this girl / woman, because she's probably in the like late 20s, beginning of 30s, and she's just going through a lot. She just doesn't fit in society, and I just wanted to hug this person, and it was just such a nice story, so heartwarming and so heavy as well. I loved it. Book heaven. And now we have another great book. That's the 5th season. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, this is book heaven. This is fantastic. This is a fantasy that has a very big climate-related topic and underlining issue regarding the dystopia that's going on in the story. And I really enjoyed it, and I feel like this is a staple for anyone who likes fantasy books. But yeah, book heaven, a classic. I thought this book was going to be all vibes and creeps. This is episode 13, but this is going straight to book jail. This is the worst book I have read in the past, 2 years, 3 years. It's horrendous. I wanted to leave it after 10 pages. It's so badly written. The story is not spooky at all. It's so predictable. I hated every second of it. It was just like, when you're on TV and you're watching those TV programs when there are people that are so incredibly incompetent, but they're looking for ghosts in, like haunted house. Allegedly haunted houses or things like that, but nothing comes up, or maybe there's a little screech on the radio and they're like, oh my god, this is a ghost, it just said, you're gonna die in 2 minutes. But no, this is not it. Oh, that was bad. This is going straight to the book jail, sorry. But this is not the case of Night Film. This was a good discovery. This is a kind of book that has articles in there, so you have to go through the articles and the little pieces of paper in the book to understand what happens in the story. And yeah, it was great. It was great, and I'll put it in book heaven. It's really interesting, really well done, and the ending was very satisfying. I really liked the characters. Very good, book heaven. Yeah, we're into our last 4 books. So we have Rouge. Rouge was a here for the vibes. I love the vibes. It just made me feel like I was in this sort of parallel world. It has such a good message, and it has such a good explanation on why the author wants to talk about this. It's all about, basically, I think the author is trying to condemn the beauty industry and how this affects every single, choice in our life, in our everyday life, and by our, I mean women. But I think it got boring after a while, so that's why I'm putting it in here for the vibes. And it was fine. It just took me a lot to go through it, which is something that I don't expect from a book like this. But now we have redemption, because I read Starlet House, and this book was a masterpiece. I don't know why it's not more famous. This is going in, oh hell yeah. It's so good, so good. It's the story of these 2 characters that are so flawed, but so good at the same time. They're so funny. It's so funny because I feel like they're both describing themselves like they are the worst, like you're the worst kind of person, you're the ugliest man I've ever met, but the romance that sparks between them, it's amazing. And putting that together with the with the entire story about this haunted house or whatever, it's so beautiful. The fantasy element of it is fantastic. This is oh hell yeah, but with the potential of being in book heaven. Now we have 2 books, actually. It's a duology, One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. This is going both of them in oh hell yeah. I love this one. To be fair, at the beginning I thought it was going to be a high fantasy, and then I read it and I was like, hang on. Is this going to be as muddy? Because the Yagal is not for smuts. There are a couple scenes that are like sort of delving into that little area, but no, it's not. It's just very. I'd say it's just it's just some borrowed elements from it, but the story is really good. I really enjoyed the magical system. We have a magical system based on tarot cards. They're similar to tarot cards, I would say, but they also have very bad consequences for the people who use them. So we don't really have characters who abuse the power of them, or at least they do use them and then they suffer for it. It's a good redemption story. There's a good romance in there. I really enjoyed the second part of the romance in the second book between two other characters, which I'm not going to spoil. But yes, I really enjoyed it. I feel like there was something missing to be, 5-star, which I don't think it is. But yeah, it's a good 4 stars. It's a good hell yeah. This book of the year, it's Boy Parts. Okay, this book is going straight to Book Joe. I'm sorry I said it. Straight to Book Joe. Okay, what can I say about this book? This is the example. I understand what the author wants to do, but I hated the main character. And anything could have happened to her and I would have been like, okay. It was, I just didn't see the point in it. I mean, I guess, yes, I get it. If I couldn't add here the video of Vanessa Hudgens just going, I get it, but, regarding the pandemic, that is my reaction to this book. There's not, I feel so guilty because so many people love this book. And I've seen it described as, this is American Psycho, but for hot girls. Not really, because at least American Psycho was, it is what it is. It's not my favorite, but it's got a story behind it. I really didn't like this one. Yeah, I just felt angry throughout the whole story because I was just angry with the story. It was just nasty. There was not a single page when I was like, okay, I can see where the character is going. She's just a bad person, but she's also not interesting, so it doesn't really want to make me carry on reading. Okay, yeah. I didn't want to end on this note, but these are all the 40 books that I read in 2023. And I think there's actually a good amount of books that we put in Oh Hell Yeah and Book Heaven. I'm so sorry, but my cat is snoring. Boopsie. Yeah, she's snoring. Yeah, there's not many books that I would put in book jail. But those books, they can't be redeemed because they belong to book jail. Anyway, that was it from today. I really hope that you enjoyed this little video, and I'm so sorry I'm sick, but the Rona doesn't want to leave me. And I'll be uploading another video next week, and we will talk about my TBR for the beginning of the year. Thank you very much. Bye!